I was born in Omaha, Nebraska in February of 1965. At 5 days of age, I was adopted and was taken to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is where my mother and my father would raise me. And I have enough problems with my own parents. I don't need any more problems with another set of parents. Things were pretty good as far as I can remember. I'm a survivor of child abuse. And that abuse began probably when I was about 4 or 5. That was the perpetrator was one of my parents. It was my mother. And she went a little crazy for a significant period of time. And she would abuse my sister and myself. And that really was a defining moment, a defining time in my life. It formed me as a human being, as the negative aspects of being a survivor are pretty obvious, but the positive aspects of that are not so obvious. I am compassionate and understanding of the human experience in a way that I wouldn't be if I wasn't a survivor. My faith was given to me by my paternal grandmother, Gladys, during this time between when I was about 5 and 14 years of age. And she was a good Christian woman. She was the most satisfied human being I've ever met. She was in want of nothing because she had everything she needed. And she was a very humble woman. And by her example, is my constant example. She is the most Christ-like person I've ever met. I went to a boarding school, an Episcopal boarding school called Shattuck St. Mary's, which is where I found my true calling in life, which is to be a priest. It was a place of formation where I was formed, and I really do believe that. Life lessons I learned there, I still use. School that I came out in 1979, 1980, to a wonderful therapist whose name was Pat Flanders. I was grappling with my own sexuality, and I went to see Pat Flanders, and I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of chain-smoking Marlboro Reds. You don't know what that is, but those are like pretty heinous, cancerous cigarettes, very strong. And she smoked these things called Pall Mall 120s. You know, a cigarette is like this long, maybe, but Pall Mall 120s were like this long. And so I sat there and I shook and I shook and I shook, and I finally said through tears, and I'm gay. And Pat is a very, she's still alive, wise person, and she pulled these like long saber-like cigarettes out, and she tapped it on the pack, and I'm sitting there sobbing, so they're waiting for the response, and she puts it in her mouth, and she lights it, and she goes, "So what?" And that's kind of been the way it's been for me. It's been sort of a so what experience. When I went to college, things happened that derailed my call, and I was connected with a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. I went to McAllister College, and I was working with a priest, and he would be in my sophomore year, arrested, tried, and convicted for pedophilia. And I watched how unchristian the church can be, and how very human Jim, who was the priest, could be. And it was a very traumatic experience, and to watch someone who and you go to jail and you visit them, and they come out and then they drink themselves to death within 2 years, literally, turn jaundice, the whole bit, is enough to say maybe this isn't what I want to do. And I was very young at the time, and wasn't as connected to my prayer life as I should have been. And so being gay and being a Christian was, to me, very natural, but to many other people, it seemed to be, a disgrace and an abomination. And I remember walking by a man named Fred Phelps, who you may or may not know who he was. He was the head pastor of the Westboro Baptist Church in Kansas. And he was a horrible man who would go to, and he was a horrible homophobe, an active homophobe. But in this time, I walked by him, and he spat on me, and he called me an AIDS faggot. And I remember it vividly, really wanting to kill him, and would have, had friends not held me back. It's more than just a rub. It was sort of like, why aren't you getting this, that it's okay to be gay and to be a Christian? Why aren't you understanding that Jesus would have hung out with people like me and not necessarily people like you? So that was my journey, as sort of being a gay Christian and trying to, waiting for society to catch up, waiting for the church to catch up. Being here at Trinity St. John's, it's about a community of love. It's about a community of growing in their faithfulness to Jesus, and it's about service, and it's about being well with God. And it's a different experience, but always we're driving for service, are we not? We're always trying to help those in need. We all stand together, and I am very proud of our Episcopal Church, regardless of this Anglican communion, of which the Archbishop of Canterbury said that same-sex spouses cannot come to the Lambeth Conference in order to save communion. To which I say, gender be damned. We are all the same. Oh, Heavenly Father, we live in a nation that is so widely divided right now. We ask you to enliven us the Spirit that is Jesus Christ, so that we may follow him and not our own opinions. We ask you, O gracious God, to be with us today in fellowship and prayer as we worship you, your Son, and the Holy Spirit,